Boldwood presents Mr. Nice, written by John Nicholl and read by Deryn Edwards. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Chapter 1. Megan woke with a start, opening one bleary eye and then the other, as the banging got louder, reverberating throughout the entire house, the front door shaking in its frame. She turned her head on the pillow. Tired eyes narrowed to slits, glancing at the illuminated numbers on the digital clock to her left. Megan screwed up her face, swearing crudely under her breath as the clock's face came into gradual focus. 2:03 a.m. And here he was again, pissed out of his tiny mind, no doubt, hammering on the door like the place was on fire. Would he ever see sense? Would he ever grow up? It seemed that even the threat of imprisonment couldn't control the fool's drunken excesses. Come on, girl, up you get. Just get rid of him. Send him on his way. He won't sod off otherwise. The idiot never did. Megan threw back her summer-weight quilt. She rose wearily from the bed, putting on a cotton t-shirt and a pair of loose knee-length linen shorts, before approaching her young daughter's bedroom, across the small landing at the front of the Victorian house, with a view of the little garden and street below. As the banging became even more insistent, Megan entered the room, to find her daughter perched on her single bed, with the curtains only slightly ajar, peering down, half hidden, at her drunken father below. A single tear ran down the young child's freckled cheek as she turned to Megan, her face perfectly framed by her pale yellow hair. Lottie smiled thinly as she met her mother's tired eyes, but there was an unmistakable air of sadness about her that made Megan's heart sink. It seemed the break-up and everything that went with it was taking its inevitable toll.
Is Daddy cross again? Have I been naughty?
Megan reached out, pulling Lottie towards her and hugging her tight as she carried her towards the larger bedroom at the back of the house, away from the street. No, sweetie, it's not your fault. It's never your fault. Daddy is being silly again, that's all. I'm going to tell him to go away and then we can get back to sleep. Try not to worry. Everything is going to be just fine. I'll look after you. I love you very much. Lottie climbed into her mother's double bed, pulling the quilt high, hiding from the world, not wanting to see Megan leave the room.
Can I sleep in your bed all night, Mummy?
Megan forced an unlikely smile, nodding twice, her blue eyes flickering like a faulty bulb, tears flowing despite a determined desire to remain stoic in times of adversity. Of course you can. I'll tell Daddy to go back to his flat, and then we can cuddle up together. Now close your eyes, ignore the silly noise, and think nice thoughts. We can go swimming together tomorrow, at the pool. Just you and me. You'd like that, wouldn't you? And maybe we'll call to see Granny on our way home. You can feed the fish in the pond.
And the frogs.
Megan relaxed slightly, full of hope as the banging stopped. She stood and listened, clutching her stomach, rocking in one place. Had the fool finally given up on the hope of a response? Megan placed the palms of her hands together in front of her at shoulder level, fingers pointed upwards. Please, God, let it be so. But no. Bang. There it was again. Bang! Megan swallowed hard, a twitchy feeling in her extremities. Yes, Lottie, we mustn't forget the frogs. We like the frogs. Now close your eyes and put your hands over your ears. I'm going to send Daddy on his way. That's it. Hold them tight, as I showed you, like the last time. I'll be back as quickly as I can. The little girl opened her eyes wide.
Where's Teddy?
Megan crossed the room looking back, speaking as calmly as possible, desperately attempting to introduce a semblance of normality to a situation that had become all too familiar in recent weeks. I left him in your room. That was silly of me. I'll bring him with me when I come back, promise. Now hold your hands over your ears like I told you, and close your eyes tight shut. That's it. Perfect. What a good girl you are. I'll be back before you know it.
Will you leave the light on?
Yes, I'll leave the light on. Lottie was entirely hidden under the quilt when Megan left the room a few seconds later, closing the door behind her. Megan wanted to stay to comfort her daughter. She so wanted to hold Lottie closer and whisper sweet words of reassurance into her ear. But what would that achieve? Her idiot ex-husband was still out there, banging, 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 and no doubt getting angrier and more frustrated. It was always the same. His misplaced sense of entitlement, the indignant rage that seemed to define him. Just like the last time. Just like every time. For the briefest of seconds, Megan considered running down the stairs, opening the front door and telling Dale exactly what she thought of him, in unambiguous language even he couldn't fail to understand. But she changed her mind at the very last second. What would be the point? The man was drunk, and very likely beyond rational thought. Her words would be wasted. And worse than that, he might well push her aside, force his way in, rush upstairs and disturb Lottie. He'd done it before. The potential payoff just didn't justify the risks. Keep him out. That was best. Encourage him to go. Megan noticed that her hands were trembling as she re-entered her daughter's bedroom seconds later, her gut twisting and her heart thumping in her throat. She clenched her jaw as she knelt on the bed, urging herself on, rather than giving in to the temptation to curl up in a ball and cry. She threw back the curtains, opened the window wide, and glared down at her ex-husband as he turned away from the door and began kicking it mule-style. Megan watched, feeling a mix of anger and grief as her ex stumbled forwards, almost falling before regaining his footing, a look of triumph on his unshaven face. She shook her head slowly to the right and left, shouting just about loud enough to ensure he heard her in the street below.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
He peered up at her, hands held wide, palms forward.
So you finally heard me, have you, you stuck-up bitch?
He burped at full volume.
It's about fucking time.
Megan's reply was immediate.
Oh, the entire street has heard you, Dale. It's past 2 a.m, in case you hadn't realised. And you've woken Lottie. She's 5 years old, for goodness sake. What were you thinking?
What's the problem? She wants a daddy, that's all.
Are you completely deranged? You've scared her. She's lying in bed, crying her eyes out because of you. And she doesn't want to hear her mother called a bitch. It upsets her like it upsets me. What part of that don't you understand?
He peered up with a drunken, supercilious smirk that Megan found infuriating. She knew exactly what was coming next. It was a tactic he often used. Good guy and bad guy all rolled into one, anger followed by pleading, as predictable as night and day.
Just open the fucking door, there's a good girl. Please, I've only had a couple of pints, I'll soon cheer Lottie up.
He took a bag of sweets from a jacket pocket, holding them up in clear view, shaking the packet above his head as if they were the most fabulous prize in the world.
I've bought her some sweets. Jelly babies, a favourite. Come on, open up. She wants to see her daddy.
Megan closed her tired eyes for a beat before speaking again, holding the window frame with a white-knuckle grip, digging in her nails, taking out her frustrations on the plastic.
You can't be here, Dale. Have you forgotten the injunction? Do you remember what the judge said? Look around you. People are putting their lights on. Curtains are opening. I suggest you sod off home before someone calls the police, because someone will. They definitely will. It's just a matter of time.
Interfering bastards.
What else do you expect when you behave like a total prat?
They can all go fuck themselves.
You won't be saying that when you're dragged off in handcuffs.
Dale returned the sweets to his pocket, succeeding on the second attempt.
Oh, come on, open the door. This was my home too not so very long ago. I paid for half of it. Open the door. It's not too much to ask, is it?
Go away. Go while you've still got the chance. Do you want to be locked up? God knows you deserve it.
He gagged once, then again, spitting vomit before looking up and smiling, a thin line of drool running down his chin.
Oh, come on, Meg. I want to see my girl, that's all. She's my daughter as well as yours. We made it together.
He began thrusting his hips back and forth in slow rhythmic motion, his open hands positioned as if holding a lover's hips, penetrating her from behind.
Surely you must remember.
He started moaning loudly, as if in the realms of sexual ecstasy.
I'm coming. I can't recall you complaining at the time.
Megan sucked the still warm summer air deep into her lungs, swallowing her fury, forcing it back down her throat. She steadied herself, telling herself insistently that a more conciliatory tone may help calm him down if she chose her words with care.
Oh, come on now, Dale. It's the middle of the night. You know the score. You can see Lottie once a week by prior arrangement, and that's if and only if you're sober. You can't be here now, and especially not in that state. Sort yourself out. You're breaking the conditions of the injunction.
Fuck the injunction. I can't understand why you took me to court in the first place.
Come on now. Someone will have dialed 999 by now. Go before the police arrive. Turning up here in that state in the middle of the night doesn't achieve anything at all.
He threw his arms out.
I just want to see my girl.
This time, Megan's words spewed from her mouth in a torrent, rising in pitch and volume as she glared down at him, eyes popping.
No! It's 2 in the damned morning! Lottie needs her sleep! How many times do I have to say it? It's time to grow up! I've had enough! Just shut your stupid mouth and go away!
I'm not going anywhere until I've seen Lottie.
Megan shook her head.
Do you want to upset her? Do you want to break her heart? Because that's what you're doing.
You're full of shit, woman.
Lottie needs a daddy she can rely on. A daddy to be proud of. Just give up the booze and you can be that person again.
What harm do a few bevies do?
If you're trying to ruin your daughter's life, you're succeeding. Is alcohol really more important than her happiness? That's what you need to ask yourself, because it seems that way to me.
He looked up and yelled.
You're talking crap. Total fucking crap. Lottie is missing me, that's all. Open the fucking door. I'll give her a hug and a kiss, and then I'll be on my way.
Megan gritted her teeth, hissing her words.
We can arrange something in a few days, if and only if you leave now.
Dale picked up a sizable stone from the well-tended flower bed bordering the small rectangular lawn, intending to smash the glass panel in the door to force entry. But he dropped it almost immediately, on hearing a siren wail in the distance, getting gradually louder. He peered up at Megan, as angry as she'd ever seen him. Tense muscles changing the contours of his face.
You phoned the pigs. You have got to be kidding me. Why would you do that? You bitch, you total fucking bitch!
Megan shook her head once more, feeling somewhat conflicted. A part of her was grateful to whoever had called the emergency services. A part of her bemoaned her ex's continued decline into alcoholism.
No, I didn't ring the police, not this time. But don't think I won't in the future if you turn up here in that state again. Now go, before the police get here. Sleep it off. We can talk when you're sober. If you don't go now, you're going to be locked up. None of us wants that.
Dale bowed in mock obedience.
Yeah, I hear you. Anything you say, Your Majesty.
Megan went to close the window, but pushed it wide again as he staggered towards his vehicle, keys in hand.
Walk, for goodness sake! You're way over the limit. Do not get in that car. Now go, before it's too late.
Chapter 2. Megan crept into her spacious bedroom a short time later, both surprised and gratified to see that Lottie was asleep and lost to her dreams. Megan yawned, bent stiffly at the waist, and gently kissed her daughter's forehead before tucking her favourite chocolate-brown teddy bear next to her under the quilt. Megan looked down at her young child for a few seconds more, studying her features, her impish face, her light blonde hair, recalling happier times in the not-so-distant past before Dale's gradual decline into alcohol addiction ravaged their previously ordinary lives, before his selfish nature tore their relationship to pieces. Megan brought her rumination to a sudden end, considering her thought process pointless at best. Going over it all yet again didn't change anything, not a damn thing. She had to look forward. Megan tiptoed from the room ever so slowly, ever so quietly, a look of resigned acceptance on her face. "Please don't wake up, Lottie. Please don't wake up." Megan shuffled into the family kitchen on tired legs, in search of aspirin to alleviate her nagging headache. She popped a soluble tablet into her open mouth, switching on the kettle on autopilot, before picking up her mobile, seriously considering contacting her mother despite the early hour. It would be so good to talk to someone who actually cared. But in the early hours of the morning, really? Was that even remotely reasonable? Most likely not. Why not have a quick cuppa and give it some further thought? She dropped a tea bag into a favourite pottery mug, poured in the water, added a splash of unsweetened soya milk from the fridge, and slumped back down into the nearest chair, still weighing up the pros and cons of making the call. Oh, what the hell? Mum won't mind. She never does. Megan nearly ended the call before her mother answered, guilt almost getting the better of her. But she suddenly heard her mother's familiar voice at the other end of the line. "Hello? Megan? What is it, love?" Megan took a deep breath, filling her lungs, exhaling slowly before speaking. "I need to talk." "What, now? It's the middle of the night. Can't it wait until morning?" There was a moment's silence, as Megan began weeping without words. "What is it, love? What's happened? I know there's something." Megan sipped her tea, wetting her mouth, wondering why her throat felt so very parched. "He's been here again." "Dale?" "Well, yes. Who else?" "Oh, for God's sake, not again. What's he done this time?" "He turned up here pissed out of his tiny mind as usual, hammering on the door and demanding to see Lottie at the top of his voice. What sort of father does that in the middle of the night?" "I'm so sorry. It's hard to believe he's the same man you married. Dale's changed so very much in such a short time. I know he lost his father, followed by his job. It was hard on him, but we all have to deal with life's problems. No one is immune, not you, not me, and not Dale." Megan cradled her mug, taking comfort in the residual heat. "It's less than 2 weeks since court proceedings. I thought the injunction would make a difference, but it seems not. It's Lottie I feel most sorry for. It's knocking her confidence, confusing her, setting her back. She's even started wetting the bed again. Dale knows all this. How is a 5-year-old little girl supposed to understand what's going on? I want to explain, but what do I say? It's tearing me apart, Mum. I don't know what to do for the best." Megan heard a deep sigh at the other end of the line before her mother spoke again. "You two used to be so very close. Dale's such a nice boy when he's sober." Megan stiffened. "Yes, but not so much when he's drunk. Why doesn't he stop pouring poison down his stupid throat? If he doesn't want to stop drinking for himself, why not do it for us? Aren't we enough? It's like the real Dale walked away from us and never came back." "It's an illness. Your father was much the same. This is like travelling back in time." "Dale promised me he'd stop drinking. He said it to my face as we left the courtroom. For my sake and for Lottie's too, that's what he said. Do you know,
I actually believed him this time, but it didn't even last a fortnight. Maybe one day he'll live up to his empty promises.
Megan paused.
I'd still like to think he will.
All the good intentions in the world are meaningless, unless Dale acts on them. Your father made his share of promises over the years, most of them worthless.
Megan wiped away her tears with the back of one hand. I know, honestly, I know Dale's a liar. I can't believe a single word that comes out of his stupid mouth. I'm beginning to think that moving away is the only real option left open to me. I could ask work for a transfer, somewhere far away at the other end of the country, Plymouth maybe, or Truro. I've always liked the West Country. If it weren't for you, I'd do it, I really would.
I'd miss you and Lottie terribly.
There were a few seconds of silence before Megan spoke again, her voice resonating with raw emotion. The police came.
What?
The police. They came here tonight, 2 uniformed constables, a man and a woman, siren blaring, blue lights flashing. They left a few minutes ago. I'm a solicitor, Mum. I knew one of them by name. I'd seen her in the magistrate's court. I've never felt more embarrassed in my life. When's it all going to end?
Did you call them, the police?
Did you call them?
Megan shook her head in reflexive response.
No, it must have been one of the neighbours. I was annoyed at first, but I can't blame them. Dale was making one hell of a racket, yelling, banging the door. People aren't used to that sort of thing. I can't believe it's me in the spotlight. It's the sort of thing I deal with professionally. You know, the sort of thing that happens to other people. Everyone's going to be talking about me, and not in a good way.
What does it matter what people think? That's the least of your worries.
It's a work thing. Caerystwyth's a small town. My reputation's important to me. My clients need to know they can trust me.
Is Lottie asleep?
Megan massaged the back of her neck, her hand moving in jerks. Yes. I don't know how, but she's managed to get off somehow. The poor thing must be totally exhausted.
At least there's no school. She can have a lie-in. That's one positive. Are you going to report him?
What, Dale?
You've got to put a stop to all this sometime. Maybe now's the time. This could be the opportunity.
Megan exhaled slowly through pursed lips, shifting on her chair, crossing and uncrossing her legs, unable to get comfortable. He's broken the conditions of the injunction. He's in trouble enough as it is. A part of me still loves him, God help me. I don't want to make things even worse than they already are.
Not even after everything he's done?
No, I don't think so. Megan laughed despite herself, but her tone betrayed her true feelings. I thought me and Dale were in it for the long haul. I thought we'd grow old together. How wrong can one be? I don't trust my judgment anymore, that's the truth of it.
Everyone feels a bit like that when life takes a difficult turn. I know I did when, well, you know, when your father went off the rails. The girl was 21 years old, for goodness sake. Maybe they're all as unreliable as each other, or perhaps we've both been unlucky. There must be some good men out there somewhere.
Megan stretched and yawned, pushing her mug aside, still 3/4 full. She closed her eyes for a second or two before opening them again, glancing at the clock.
Are you still there, Meg?
Yes, I'm still here. I nearly drifted off. I've taken a sleeping tablet.
Give me a ring after breakfast. We can talk then. Why don't you come and visit? I've bought Lottie a new colouring book. You know, one of the ones she likes with the shiny stickers. I'd love to see you both.
I did say I'd take her swimming and then call with you on the way home. She wants to feed the fish.
I'm in all day. Call any time. You're always welcome.
Thanks, Mum. I love you. I don't know what I'd do without you.
I love you too.
I'll see you in a few hours' time. Now it's late. Off you go to bed. Things will get better. Promise. Nothing lasts forever. Not even this.
Chapter 3. Megan woke at just after 7 that morning, as a shard of bright sunshine broke through the marble clouds, bathing the house in light. The events of the night came into sharp focus, playing behind her eyes as if in real time, as she went to hug her daughter. Megan turned first one way, and then the other, reaching out to pull Lottie close. But all she found was the soft toy, lying next to her under the quilt. Megan was on full alert in that instant, her protective mothering instincts sending adrenaline surging through her system, energy and blood redirected to her muscles as she sat up. Megan's eyes darted from one corner of the room to the next, to right, to left and back again, every instinct telling her that something was amiss. Where was Lottie? Where on earth was she? She usually slept until woken, and on those rare occasions when she'd been the first to wake, she'd called out, "Mum!" sought her out, and shaken her. Megan jumped from the bed, checking the bathroom first without success, and then Lottie's room, hoping she may be playing with her dolls. But no, she wasn't there either. Megan called out Lottie's name once, then again, louder this time, with concern in her tone. But Lottie didn't reply. Where is she? Where on earth is she? Megan hurried downstairs 2 steps at a time, her blood pressure soaring to a savage high as her anxiety continued to escalate. Megan called out her daughter's name time and again as she rushed from one room to the next. But all was silence. A strange, pervasive silence that seemed to mock her, sending imaginary icy fingers running up and down her spine as she continued her search. In the kitchen, she stopped and stared, slack-jawed, mouth hanging open, her eyes fixed on the large, open window, as if a spotlight was shining upon it. Someone had opened it wide. They'd climbed through the gap. It was the only thing that made any sense, the only logical explanation. How hadn't she heard? Was she that tired? She'd only taken the one sleeping tablet. Oh no, what was she thinking? She shouldn't have taken anything at all. Megan stood, statue-like, her mind still racing as she searched for an explanation that made any sense at all. Oh shit, it was Dale. It had to be Dale. He must have returned after the police left, or he could have hidden. Maybe he'd hidden. Perhaps he'd waited, bided his time. The bastard, the absolute bastard. He'd broken in. He'd actually broken in. Megan pictured her drunken ex scrambling through the open window in the semi-darkness of the night. She pictured him ascending the stairs, one cautious step at a time, and then lifting Lottie from the bed while she slept, sedated, next to her. How dare he? He'd gone too far this time. What the hell was the idiot thinking? Was he really that irresponsible? Megan reached out, picking up her smartphone from where it was charging. She rung Dale's number, cursing loudly and crudely when she didn't receive a reply. She rang twice more, but with the same negative results. Megan briefly considered leaving a message, something that left her ex in no doubt as to her extreme displeasure. But no, it made more sense to drive straight to his recently rented home, to bang on the door and keep banging until he answered. See how he liked that, some of his own medicine when nursing a hangover. It was time to pull on some clothes and get out of there, just as quickly as she possibly could. Should she ring her mum? No, that could wait. Mum wasn't getting any younger. She needed her sleep. There was little point in worrying her, even more than she already had. Now where were those car keys? Megan rushed from the kitchen and towards the stairs, spotting the bunch of keys on the dark wooden hall stand next to the front door. Her mind was still racing as she climbed each step. The behavioural effects of the alcohol would have worn off by now. Lottie should be okay. She was safe. Yes, Lottie was with her dad, the sober dad, the sensible dad, the dad she'd known before the strong drinking gradually sunk in its claws, taking hold and ruining everything they had one painful day at a time. As Megan picked up a pair of faded blue jeans, her mind leapt. one thought after another tumbling in her head, in search of reassurance, cathartic, a self-therapy of sorts. Dale was immature and reckless, but he wasn't a bad person, not deep down where it really mattered. He wasn't one of the truly evil bastards she sometimes encountered in her legal role. The haters, the destructive, self-obsessed men who felt no concern for anyone but themselves. Dale had a conscience. He wasn't entirely devoid of goodness. He'd never hurt Lottie, not intentionally and certainly not physically. No, of course he wouldn't. He'd always loved their daughter in his way, and he'd be wide awake by now, suffering, racked with guilt, full of heartfelt regrets. Lottie was safe. She'd be sitting on the sofa watching one cartoon or another, eating a favourite sugary cereal without a care in the world. Lottie was safe and sound. Megan told herself she'd soon have her back. They'd be off to the pool together, making the most of the day ahead. Chapter 4. Megan started her small but sporty Arctic white Italian hatchback on the second turn of the quay. She headed towards Dale's rented flat on the outskirts of the pleasant West Wales market town, driving a lot faster than was sensible as the rain began to fall. Within 10 minutes, Megan was turning into Dale's modest terraced street, searching for a suitable parking space to the right and left as she slowed, the windscreen wipers battling valiantly with the increasing volume of water, seemingly coming from every direction at once. Megan parked half on and half off a low curb, about 100 yards from her ex-husband's first-floor two-bedroom abode. When she reached Dale's shared front door, Megan was panting hard, her chest rising and falling with a steady pulse as she pressed the top bell of 2, holding down the white button, hearing the shrill tone ring out. She allowed the bell to ring for a full 30 seconds before banging on the door with the side of a clenched fist, increasing the force and regularity of the blows with every few seconds that passed. The last thing she wanted to do was to upset Lottie. The events of the early hours had done more than enough of that already. But she had to get an answer. Why no reply? Why on earth wasn't Dale answering the damn door? They'd both be awake by now. No one could sleep through that noise. Was Dale hiding? Was he choosing to ignore her, embarrassed by his drunken behaviour and keen to avoid confrontation, an argument he couldn't win? And what about Lottie? Surely she'd open the curtains. She'd peer out, guess it was her mum. Why were the curtains still closed after all this time? Megan shuddered, her entire body trembling from growing apprehension as opposed to cold. She looked up at each first-floor window in turn. Oh, God, what on earth was going on? Maybe they weren't in there at all. Megan looked up and down the street, suddenly acutely aware that she hadn't seen Dale's aged, rust-rotted estate car at any point since her arrival. She looked again, hoping she'd missed it, eyes darting from one vehicle to the next. But it was nowhere to be found. Megan wanted to scream. She wanted to stomp and shout. But instead, she reached into her bag, searching for her mobile with frantic fingers, as large raindrops continued to fall, water running down her face and soaking into her clothes. She bounced a foot on the pavement as she dialed and began striding back to her car as the rain eased slightly. She picked up her pace, avoiding the many puddles with quick dancing feet, speaking as she walked, phone in one hand and car keys in the other as the sky darkened. "Mum, Dale took Lottie last night after I rang you." Her mother's tone was urgent. "Took her? What do you mean he took her?" "The bastard broke into the house and took Lottie from the bed while I slept right there next to her in my bedroom at the back of the house. I left the kitchen window open just slightly on the latch. I forgot to close the damn thing after boiling some soup. It was a warm night. Why wouldn't I leave it open? We live in a low-crime area. And he took full advantage. He broke in and took her away." There was a second's silence. "Are you sure?" Megan's voice betrayed her frustration. "Yes, of course I'm sure. I couldn't be surer." The response was immediate this time. "Have you rung him?" Megan unlocked the car, jumping into the driver's seat to escape the rain, which had started falling more heavily again. "Yes, I've rung him, and I'm at the flat now, but there's no reply, and his car's not here. I've searched the entire street. I don't know what the hell to do next. I'm starting to panic, Mum.
This isn't like anything he's done before. If he's capable of breaking into the house, what else is he capable of? He must be having some sort of breakdown.
Megan detected a hard edge to her mother's voice when she spoke again, a hard edge she hadn't heard for quite some time.
Right. Now you listen to me. I want you to go straight to the police station, and I want you to tell them exactly what's happened, word for word, as you've told me. Make it official. If Dale gets into serious trouble, he's brought it on himself. If he's locked up, that's down to him too. It's no more than he deserves.
Megan paused. When she spoke, her tone was reticent.
Do you really think that's necessary? Dale's broken into your house. Think about what you've told me. He took that little girl in the car and drove when he was drunk. He put her life at risk, and you don't even know where she is. It's time to put her first. She's the only thing that matters now. What's Dale capable of? You asked the same question yourself not a minute ago. You need to get Lottie back before she comes to any harm, deliberate or otherwise. Go to the police station and tell them everything. I can't say it any clearer than that.
Megan dropped her chin to her chest, exhaling slowly as she started the engine and turned on the wipers.
Yes, okay. I know you're right. I'll go straight to the police station right now. If someone had told me the idiot was going to do something as stupid as this, I wouldn't have believed them. It's got to be down to the drink. It's twisted his mind, addled his brain. The man needs professional help. I could slap him sometimes and slap him hard. He's breaking our hearts.
You're doing the right thing. Talk to the police. Dale's forced your hand. No one can blame you. Megan talked as she drove, holding the phone to her face with one hand while steering with the other.
Right. I'm on my way.
Okay, we can speak again later. If there's anything you need, I'm here for you. Chapter 5. Megan visited West Wales Police Headquarters on a regular basis, in her role as lawyer, to represent one client or another, offering legal advice, sitting in on interviews. But this time was different, very different. And as she stood in reception, curling her toes, fidgeting with her cuff, Megan felt like a fish out of water. Her usual professional assurance had been stripped away by the personal nature of her purpose. She was about to shine a light on her private life, something she'd had to do all too often in the recent past, and the prospect filled her with morale-sapping doubts and apprehensions. But she repeatedly reminded herself that her mother was correct. Lottie had to come first. Dale had crossed a line. Perhaps some time in a cell was precisely what he needed, shock therapy. Maybe then he'd get off the booze once and for all. Perhaps he'd become the man he'd once been, the man she loved. Megan rocked back and forth where she stood, shivering slightly in her soaked clothes, unable to settle in the one place as she anticipated what was to come. When the receptionist finally appeared behind the grey glass security screen, her friendly face was familiar, but even that didn't help Megan relax even slightly. As Megan chose her words with care, she feared they might stick in her throat. She'd never felt more out of her comfort zone, never more ill at ease. I need to speak to a police officer. The receptionist smiled with what looked like genuine affection. It's still raining, then? Megan pushed her wet fringe away from her eyes and nodded. Yes, I think it's getting worse as the morning goes on. The receptionist pointed to her left. There's some paper towels in the ladies' toilet, if that helps. Megan shook her head. No, I'm all right, thanks. I've got some tissues in my bag. The receptionist smiled again, this time without parting her lips. I haven't seen you here for a while. How are things? Are you keeping busy? Megan searched her busy mind. What was the woman's name? Susan, Sandy, Sandra. Yes, Sandra. That was it. Can I just speak to an officer, please, Sandra? I haven't got time to chat. Sandra stiffened, her smile disappearing as quickly as it appeared. Do you want to speak to anyone in particular? Megan dabbed at her face with a paper hanky before dropping it back into her bag. No, I'm happy to speak to whoever's available, but if I can see somebody quickly, that will be appreciated. Sandra rolled her eyes.
If you could give me an idea of what it relates to, I'd have a better idea who's best.
Megan's brow furrowed. It's a domestic issue.
I need a little more than that.
Megan responded in a whisper, her nose almost touching the glass.
My ex-husband, he's abducted our daughter. I've got legal custody. He doesn't have the right to take her. I don't think he'd hurt her, not deliberately, not physically, but I can't be entirely sure. He was drunk when he took her. I need her found, and quickly. I feel sure you understand.
Sandra nodded.
You're in luck. I saw Laura Kesey a little earlier. She's not usually in on a Saturday.
Sandra picked up the phone.
Give me a second, I'll try our office number.
Megan forced a brittle smile.
That's appreciated, thank you.
Sandra dialed and waited.
Hello, ma'am, it's Sandra on the front desk. I've got Megan Weller here with me, the solicitor. She says her ex has abducted their daughter. She's got custody, the father was drunk. She's concerned as to the girl's safety.
Kesey's tone was urgent. When exactly did he take her?
Give me a second, ma'am.
Sandra lowered the phone, turning her attention to Megan, who was blowing out a series of short breaths. As she stood gripping the counter's edge.
When did the alleged abduction take place?
Megan tensed at the use of the word alleged, but she decided to let it go. Maybe she was being oversensitive. There was little point in delaying matters for the sake of argument. He broke into my house sometime in the early hours of this morning and took Lottie from my bed when I was sleeping right there next to her. She's only 5 years old. The man's gone too far this time. I don't know what the hell he was thinking. I can only put it down to the drink. Sandra provided the detective with the required information, adding the child's age, rushing her words, keen to convey efficiency. OK, thank you, Sandra. That's helpful. Are any of the interview rooms free?
Rooms 1 and 3.
OK. Put Miss Weller in room 3, offer her a hot drink, and tell her I'll be with her in 2 minutes. If she thinks she's having a bad day, it's about to get worse.
Chapter 6.